What's up, y'all? So today I have a tale of how a Rick and Morty episode relates to your bodybuilding potential. And I don't mean the episode where they take a bunch of roids and get jacked.
We totally worth it. We did it.
It's a different one. And so this relates to what natural hypertrophy refers to as Schrodinger's genetics. So after many years of training, if you get big, you get jacked, you get strong, you look impressive, you look aesthetic, it means that you had good genetics all along. If you don't, it means you have shit genetics. And this is essentially a fatalist mindset where everything is predetermined. Everything is set in stone. Good results equals good genetics. Bad results equal bad genetics.
Are those cats?
I assume they're Schrodinger's cats. Or actually, I assume they both are and aren't, just like us.
The precongs see the future, and they're never wrong.
But it's not the future if you stop. Isn't that a fundamental paradox?
Genetics.
What?
So typically, your fitness, muscle building, bodybuilding journey is displayed as a curve with diminishing returns. So the first year you gain so much, then you gain a little bit more your second year, but less than the first year. Third year, you gain a little bit more, but less than your second year and way less than your first year, and you get these diminishing returns. And then by year 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, you're basically just fighting for scraps. However, there are a few problems with thinking this way. First, it's theoretical. Okay, this is what people don't realize. It is just hypothetical, and you don't know for sure.
We're entirely hypothetical.
First, you don't know where you are on this curve. Okay, so you might think, okay, it's year 1, I'm here, but you might be somewhere else, okay, in case you wasted time at various times in your journey. And it also assumes that the curve is sort of predetermined, right? Like,
You're talking about predetermination, which happens all the time.
Genetics.
Why'd you catch that? Because it was gonna fall. You're certain? Yeah, but it didn't fall. You caught it.
Future can be seen.
nothing you do changes this, but that's not true at all. Look at people all around. They start fitness, then they stop fitness, then they start again, and then there's a pandemic. And there's lots of stuff that can interrupt your journey or can speed up or slow your rate of progression. And Vitruvian Physique actually recently had a good video on this about volume. And he said that, okay, he started and got okay results, and then after a few years, he got accelerated progress because he manipulated the amount of training, his volume, that he was doing. And so not only do you not know where you are on this curve, you don't even know where the curve is, and you can change this curve through your decisions. So a lot of people paint this as, okay, this is what it is. No, okay, there are multiple different potential realities that are based on your decisions. And a good example of genetics is Brad Pitt. Now, I actually wrote a Quora answer about him a few days ago, and this was bait. This was just pure bait. I was writing this answer because I wanted to see if anyone would mention genetics. And lo and behold, someone did. Brad definitely has superior genetics. Even at 56, he was ripped in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And yes, he was. And yes, he looks great for his age, or any age, really. However, when I see his physique, my first thought is not, wow, he has amazing genetics. My first thought is, wow, he must have been really strict with his diet. Wow, he's been very consistent over the course of many years. Wow, he probably has a healthy diet. Wow, he's very disciplined. Wow, he has a lot of motivation to get in good shape because millions of people are going to see how he looks without a shirt on. I don't immediately think, oh, genetics. Anyone can get lean. Yes, anyone can get lean. If you look at hunter-gatherer tribes, before there's a lot of shitty food floating around, they're active and they are lean. They are almost all lean, close to 10% body fat. And you look at the global obesity epidemic, it's gotten out of control. But our genetics haven't changed as a species appreciably in the past couple generations. Our environment and our choices sure as shit have.
Wrong with the system. It is perfect. I agree.
Main gaining
Can be stopped.
gains can be saved.
And a lot of channels put a ton of emphasis on genetics, and I'm not saying they're not important, but perhaps this kind of fatalist attitude is not actually useful. It's better to be a little bit overly optimistic than overly pessimistic.
And by the way, I'm not completely against talking about genetics. You have someone like Megan from Team 3D Alpha. He does an excellent job about this because he actually knows what he's talking about. He references specific genes. Whereas some of these other more pessimistic channels, they don't actually talk about the specifics. They just see great physique, great genetics, bad physique, bad genetics, without actually referencing which genetics, which genes are actually causing this effect. And if you want to perform at an extremely high level in any given competition, whether it is chess or swimming or bodybuilding or something else, you have to have the genetics because everyone else is working hard, everyone else is being disciplined and dedicated and motivated and whatever. The genetics are absolutely a necessity. But just for being healthy or developing a decent physique or getting somewhat lean or getting somewhat strong, I don't think those are nearly as much of a prerequisite as some other channels tout.
And I've got comments saying, oh, well, of course you're big, or of course you have, almost 18-inch arms. You have elite genetics. No, I don't. I have above average genetics. In fact, it's hard to assess myself, but I would say I have about 90% genetics. And I actually asked Dave McConey of the Brains and Gains podcast. We talk on a pretty regular basis, and I've been on his show a few times, and so he knows me pretty well. And so I asked him, like, hey, would you assess my genetics? Don't go DM him because he doesn't know you, so obviously he's not going to be able to assess your genetics. But I just said, hey, like, what out of a percentage of 100 would you say I am? And he said 85 to 90%. Another thing people have talked about are the so-called non-responders to exercise. So this is when you take a study of, let's say, 100 people, and some of them get fantastic results, most get okay or average results, but some people don't seem to get any results at all, and some people might even lose muscle. Okay, if you take 100 people, there's always going to be a couple who they don't gain any muscle, and in fact, they might lose lean body mass. And most people would think that, oh, this is just the genetics, this is just the genetic curve, it's out of their control, they all followed the same protocol, whatever. But are these people doomed to being skinny little non-muscular fat dweeb people? No, okay? Because you don't know what they were actually doing. If someone underate chronically during the study, which most studies don't actually control, yeah, they're not going to gain very much muscle. There's always some person in the gym who's barely going through the motions, and I would say most studies are the same way. Not everyone is putting in the same effort. What about sleep? What if one guy's getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night? You think his gains are going to be spectacular? No.
From 20th Century Fox.
He set me up. He set me up.
And DreamWorks Pictures.
Who's the victim? I've never heard of him.
Steven Spielberg film.
I have to know, I have to find.
And there are quite a few people who have undereaten chronically for many, many years, and when they finally gave their body the nutrition and the energy it needed to grow, suddenly, now their genetics are way better than they were before. My genetics are way better than they were a few years ago. It's also worth noting that a lot of these genetic factors simply are not that important, at least to the average person. They might matter on a competitive bodybuilding stage if you don't have the right quad sweep, or, maybe your biceps are not as peaky as the judges would like, or you don't have the perfect insertions, or your abs are not perfectly symmetrical, all these things. But in the real world, that doesn't matter, okay? Do you think a woman looks at you and is like, yeah, I don't know, his lats are looking a little bit high. Next. No. Or at least I hope not. Standards are getting pretty high. And if you maximize your physique or get damn close to it, and you go to the beach and you're lean and you're near your potential muscle and you've done everything right, you will look fucking amazing. You will look like a Greek god. You will get tons of stares, even if you have 20% genetics or even 10% genetics. Seriously. Because the average person doesn't even fucking try.
Find out what happened in my life.
Usually when I hear, oh, I have trash genetics or I'm a non-responder, usually there's a few things going on. First, did you really try over the course of many years to actually get the job done? A lot of people's trying is not really trying at all. It's like a weak attempt. It's like, oh, slap this thing as hard as you can. Like, that's their trying. That's the only thing they've ever known because they've never experienced any hardship in life. And a lot of people are worried about their genetics, and they're putting that above everything else. You know, like, people have sent me messages saying, hey, Geoff, can you assess my genetics? And before I was super busy, I'd be like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, send me over all the details, and, you know, I'll get to work and assess everything. You know, now I'm just too busy with coaching and the videos and everything. I don't do that, so don't even ask. And I was like, all right, send me over your training log. And they're like, oh, yeah, I don't have one. You're worried about your genetics, and you're not even keeping a training log, like the very most basic thing you should be doing. What about knowledge? There's a lot of people bitching about their own genetics when they haven't even bought my book. Or learned from other not as good sources. What about your consistency? What about diet? What about your nutrition? What about programming? Trying different things out, seeing what you respond best to. Rep ranges, volume, intensity, frequency. A lot of people, they just haven't been through very many iterations of the experiment that is training before they give up, usually blaming their genetics. And some content creators are happy to help them along that path. Like, people say, oh, your tricep sweep is amazing. It's like genetically gifted. Have you seen the horrifyingly fucked up stuff I do to grow my triceps? I would not wish that on anyone unless they wanted to grow really fucking big triceps. And how many people have half-assed their training for a few years and then hopped on steroids because that was the only way that they thought that they could actually get to their goal physique, when in reality, this was absolutely naturally attainable if they had just been patient and actually took the time and energy and effort to optimize the process. I don't know how many, but it's a lot.
Who was it that set this up?
Maintaining report.
Finally, I'll leave you with this. In the 1990s and into the 2000s, it was well established that the ideal height for a sprinter was about 5'9" to 5'10". This was thought to give you a long enough stride to have a good peak speed, but also not so tall that you would have a bad start. Luckily, Usain Bolt either didn't hear these people or ignored them and became the greatest sprinter of all time at like 6 feet 5 inches tall. Now, it's also well established that those of African descent are faster than the other races. If you look at almost any Olympic final, it's almost all black people. Luckily, Su Bingtian didn't hear this, or he heard it and ignored it.
Nah, it'll be fine.
Because he is now the fastest man of all time over 60 meters. As a Chinese guy. And it's a good thing that Usain Bolt didn't say, hey, I guess I'm too tall for this sprinting stuff, or Su Bingtian didn't say, hey, I guess I'm not black enough. You might surprise yourself. If you actually commit and dedicate yourself to this over the course of many years, you might come out the other end and say, hey, I actually have some pretty good genetics. And while I think it's important to be realistic, I think it's better to err on the side of being cautiously optimistic and not to put limits on yourself needlessly. Because there's really no harm in saying, hey, let's give this a shot.
You know your own future, which means you can change it if you want to. You still have a choice, like I did.
Yes, I have a choice. And I made it. Forgive me.
Anyway, if you're looking to up your knowledge gains, definitely grab a copy of my book. I see a lot of people spending hundreds of dollars per month on supplements when what they're actually lacking is information. And at $20, it's a steal. I should probably price it at $40, $50, $60 or more, but I want to actually genuinely be able to help as many people as possible. So definitely pick up a copy of that. All right, like, subscribe, share, comment below about stuff, anything, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.